Today is Thanksgiving in America. And what I like to say is for most people, that means getting together with family or friends and having a meal. And typically we say happy Thanksgiving. But one thing I know for a fact is that not everyone is going to have a happy Thanksgiving. And the reason why I say that is because I understand how our thinking works. And what I really want to share with you today is something that is very curious and something that personally, I hope, will help those who are struggling and suffering today on Thanksgiving 2021. My name is Dave Fry. I have a coaching business, and it's called The Space Between. It sounds, sounds like it's spacey, up in space with spaceships and stuff like that. But it's not about that. It's about how our thinking works. And it's about how we write a sentence. When we write a sentence, we start with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we have a period. There's a space and then another sentence. And that's how we speak to, and that's how we think. So on this Thanksgiving Day, there will be a lot of people who will be suffering and struggling prior to actually going to this event. And typically it's a dinner, and people bring in foods and snacks, and you share in a big meal, and you give thanks for the day, the meal, the friends, the family. And what we don't recognize, or what we don't often see, is the other person that's right next to us that we feel that we know very well, but could very well be struggling. And I want to try to work around why people struggle. And I personally know struggling. So in 1997, I was diagnosed with major depression. Prior to that, it happened right around 23 when I could start to feel things shifting for me. Things became really confusing for me, and I struggled with not knowing how exactly I'm supposed to be as this living energy. In 2015, Dr. Amy Johnson appeared like magic, and she shared in this new paradigm of how our thinking works. Out of all the things that I've listened to and heard, and some things resonated and some things didn't, there was just something about her that, in the way she spoke, there was something that really resonated with me, and I stuck with it. Prior to knowing her, I read this book called Deep Work, and it's about finding a subject that you really like and sticking with it and going all out and spending as much time on that subject as possible. So it's funny that I read that book, and then she appeared, and then I kind of did the deep work, because what she was pointing to was something that was completely unfamiliar to me, and it really resonated with me that it's possible that there's an end to struggling and suffering. And I want to go that direction and find it if it's true. And what I want to share with you, if you are struggling, I want to share that the brain has a mind of its own. And when I say that, let's talk about real quick why a person would struggle if they're on their way, or if they're at their home prior to the Thanksgiving event. Why would a person struggle? And what comes up for me personally is I can hear like drama happening in my head. And what I mean by that, thoughts are showing up that are saying, okay, we have to be there at a certain time. And what does that mean? Well, everybody gets in a little bit of a panic if we're late. And it's like, is time really, really all that important? And so my mind is now creating a story. But the reality And here's the beautiful part. The reality is I'm sitting here recording this video but my mind is doing something else. My mind is busy predicting a future. So my mind will come up and say, hey, you know what? When we get there, you know what's going to happen. Uncle Fred, sooner or later, is going to start talking about the time that snake bit him underneath his knee. And we're going to hear about this whole story. It'll last 20 minutes. And we've heard it 5,000 times. I don't want to do it. Again, there's a struggle there because the brain is saying, I don't want to do it again. But again, the reality is that I'm sitting here in a chair. I'm not close to even going over there. I don't even know if Uncle Fred's going to show up. I don't know anything. That's a big clue. There's a big clue right there. Not knowing the future, but hearing the future in my head. So the beautiful part about that is that when we start to just even getting a glimpse of us being the observer of the thinking that's going on, that's ginormous. That's astronomical. And then that's also the space between. There's a space that sees, oh, hold on a second. I can hear the story that's showing up in my head. I can hear that there's a whole list of things that the mind all of a sudden, why just completely out of the blue? That's why I sit in front of the blue. I sit in front of the blue because I know that thoughts come out of the blue, but I'm not the thoughts, and I'm not the one that makes the thoughts. So again, that may sound confusing, and I get it. I get it. It took me a while to finally resonate with what she was trying to talk about. And she had no problem talking about it. But for me, for listening deeply and being curious about what she was sharing was important. So I ask you to do the same thing, is to be curious, not about other people, not at first. People are going to talk. Everyone talks. I'm talking right now. But what's curious is about you. Be curious about yourself. We struggle. Why? What's the real reason why we struggle? We struggle because, again, thoughts show up out of the blue. There may be about Thanksgiving. How are we going to get there? What are we going to wear? What are we going to bring? Oh, you know what? I didn't get a chance to get the pumpkin puree. So now, they're going to be mad at me because I didn't make the pie. Again, this is a great sign. The struggle is a sign for us. It's showing us that we're not in this now. This now, there's nothing in this now. There's no problems with Thanksgiving in this moment. But when the mind starts rattling off stuff, it feels like, oh, there's some heavy weight on my shoulder. And if we could look at that in a way of how does thinking work and what is a thought in the first place, the scientists will scan your brain while you're reading a book or something, and they'll say, well, these parts of your brain are lighting up. Okay, so we know that thoughts light up. So what are thoughts? And then you start going down that rabbit hole and you see that, well, they're very tiny quantum bits of energy. And they bounce from one synapse to the other. And they're so small. How can something so small, a blip of energy, possibly create suffering? And I find that fascinating too. So when we're struggling and we're caught up in our heads, and we can hear the drama that's ensuing in our heads. If we can see that happening, that's really important to feel into. It's not like you have to do anything here, but recognize sometimes, or just be aware that sometimes thoughts show up, but you know that, oh, that thing again is coming up with a story. It's coming up with a story about the future, about a dinner that we're going to have, and all the things that people are going to say. We don't know. We don't know anything about the future. We don't know if the car is going to make it there. We don't know if we're going to run out of gas. We don't know if we're going to bring the right food. You know, not to make our thinking a problem, but to just know that, hey, guess what? We don't know. We don't know what anyone is going to say. We don't know what anyone's going to think. And that's beautiful. It's beautiful to realize that everything is okay. It's okay. And even if we get to Thanksgiving and everything's ruined because the oven shorted out or something, it's still okay. It's still okay. The only thing that creates this illusion of a problem is the thinking that shows up through us. And I don't know if any of that makes sense to you, but I would offer the fact that that's why I love this conversation. It's a conversation that really does need repeating because it's huge, and it saved me from even a longer life of suffering. And I realized after understanding how my thinking works that anxiety and depression are words. They're words to describe thoughts. The misunderstanding is that when we have anxious thoughts, that we are the anxious thoughts versus we're having anxious thoughts. We have anxious thoughts about Thanksgiving. Okay, okay, that's okay. Of course it's okay. That's what's the brain's doing. The brain is coming up with a future scenario. But that would be like saying that we are our heart. We have a heart, but hearts can be replaced. And we have lungs, and lungs can be replaced. The only thing that can't be replaced is our brain. And we can lose part of our brain, and we know that the other side of the brain will compensate, but we can't lose the whole thing. And yet we believe innocently that we are whatever shows up in our brain. And I just want you to know that what if that isn't true? Take a look. You don't have to look with your eyeballs, but just feel into the next time that you get anxious thoughts. And instead of you being a person with anxiety, see for yourself that you're just experiencing anxious thinking. And when you can see the thinking happen by itself outside of you, then that is really exciting to witness. It's exciting to witness our thinking happening and it having nothing to do with me or with you, right? Does that make sense? It's like watching a play, all right? You watch the play, you know the play is happening and there's different characters in the play, but you know that you're not the play. You're watching the play. So that part is the curious part. If you start to recognize that the thoughts are happening and you're able to witness them happen, then That's the glimpse that I really hope that you recognize, because it leads down this beautiful path of freedom. I'm not saying that at at the end of the path is freedom. I'm saying you have that freedom right now. That's what I'm saying. That you are completely free right now and that you're perfectly okay. You have well-being right now. And and you have a mind, or I should say you have a brain that has a mind of its own. So I do wish you a good time with your family. And we know the family's going to say whatever shows up for them. But whatever shows up for them doesn't make any difference about who you are. You are energy aware of itself. And that is the most important thing that I can share with you, is that you're okay. You have 100% well-being, and you have a mind that thinks. So please enjoy this day in any way that you can. And if you don't enjoy this day, then please know that I am available, and I will leave my links in the description below. And what I do is I just share in this conversation. So if you decide to work with me, it would be an hour-long conversation. You would share your stories with me, and I would try to point you in a different direction, because you're not a diagnosis. Trust me, I've been there. You're not a diagnosis. You are so much more than that. And I know it. No matter who I talk to, no matter who I look at, no matter who I listen to, whether it's families, whether it's friends, whether it's coworkers, whether it's strangers, I know that we all are well-being, and we have a mind that thinks. So thank you so much. Please enjoy your day. Happy Thanksgiving. I am grateful for this understanding. I'm grateful for those that are able to listen to any type of conversation that points them in a direction towards their innate well-being. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and talk to you soon.